Bonjour, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the virtual learning series Departmental Showcase hosted by the Federal Youth Network. Je m'appelle Guillaume Kofi. I will begin by acknowledging that I am on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, and I encourage all of you to acknowledge the land you are on as well. As we move through today's session, please share your questions by using the Q&A button in the official language of your choice. If a question is already asked and you like it, you can vote for the question by clicking the thumb up button. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes heureux de recevoir un autre ministère dans le cadre de Ministère sous les projecteurs. Mais bien avant, je voudrais vous rappeler que vous pourriez poser vos questions en utilisant le pouce ou bien le Q&A. Si c'est le Q&A, posez vos questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Vous écrivez la question. Si une question a été déjà posée aussi, que vous aimez la question, vous pourrez cliquer sur le pouce en l'air, le thumbs up. Merci encore à vous. Et puis, je vous rappelle, c'est le réseau des jeunes fonctionnaires fédéraux qui reçoit Sécurité publique Canada. Elena, la modératrice, tu as la parole.
Hello, bonjour. Je m'appelle Elena et je serai votre modératrice aujourd'hui. Before we begin, I would like to also acknowledge that I am currently living and working on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. I am grateful to be present on this land. I would encourage you to also find out which ancestral lands that you live on and how you can personally reflect on and support reconciliation and collaboration efforts. Thank you. Now, today I'm happy to present three fantastic speakers from Public Safety Canada who will tell you about their positions, some interesting initiatives that they are a part of outside of their day-to-day jobs, and what they love about this department. After the presentations, we will open the floor to answer your questions. In terms of housekeeping, as mentioned, all participants are muted with their cameras off today. Please do not hesitate, however, to participate through Slido, which we'll put up on the screen now, or the Q&A function in Zoom when the question period comes. La session d'aujourd'hui est bilingue. N'hésitez pas à poser vos questions dans la langue de votre choix. Now, today we will be talking about who public safety is. We're small, with only about 1,800 employees, but we're a mighty department that covers a lot of different files. Before I give you more info, I want to see what you all know about us. So please join us on Slido. You'll see the joining information on the screen now, and please feel free to share your thoughts on what you think we do. I'll give it a couple minutes for the responses to come in and read a couple, and then we'll jump right in. Safety policies, that is a very good guess. Hazards, yes, we definitely have an emergency management branch. Crime prevention, great job. Border security, yep, we cover those things as well. Public emergencies. Yeah, we have a big collaborative role as well, working with other departments and government. Security. Yeah, this is fantastic. Good. I'm seeing quite a bit of some of the subjects that we work on, and it's totally okay if you don't know much about what we do at all, because that makes this even more exciting. Perfect. All right. So I think we get a good sense of kind of everyone's understanding of the department so far. So looks like some of you know quite a bit about us already, which is great. I'll jump in now to introducing myself a bit more, as well as the speakers who will expand on what PS is. So as I mentioned at the beginning, my name is Elena, and I am an acting senior policy analyst within the Intelligence Policy Division here at Public Safety Canada. So I actually joined the department in May of 2022 and began my career here in the crime prevention branch, which someone mentioned on the Slido. and I was a student in the illicit drugs division. Specifically, I was in the opioids and other drugs team. Once my student term was over, I moved to Public Safety's National and Cybersecurity branch, where I gained an indeterminate position in the Intelligence Policy Division. In addition to working in policy, I am also a co-lead of our Community and Belonging pillar of the Public Safety Young Professionals Network. Alongside the other steering committee members, at the network, we develop initiatives to engage young professionals in our department, such as through creating a mentorship program, holding various trainings, and organizing social events. Our network is appreciative of this collaboration with the Federal Youth Network and for the opportunity to spread the word on a department that we're proud of. Now, let me introduce our speakers today. Each panelist comes from a different area of the department and has some very unique and interesting insights to share. Firstly, we have Chris Moran, who joined us in December 2021 as the Assistant Deputy Minister of the Indigenous Affairs Branch. She will provide us with information on her own career, as well as a nice overview of public safety as a whole and a sneak peek at what makes public safety so great. Second, we will hear from Justine Zabrowski, who has a very cool position in the Critical Infrastructure Directorate. She is also a co-lead of the Positive Space Initiative here at Public Safety, which she'll introduce and talk a bit about. Third, we will have Phelan Quinn, who will speak to their experiences in working in an Assistant Deputy Minister's office within the Parliamentary Affairs and Communication Branch. They are also a co-lead of the Positive Space Initiative alongside Justine, and will provide some more details as well as their personal connection to it. Lastly, although they aren't speakers today, I would like to give a shout out and acknowledge Irma and Valletta, who are online as well. Irma is the co-chair of the Young Professionals Network and will be available to help answer some questions, especially those pertaining to her work in accessibility. She's been a great help in organizing this, and so I very much appreciate her hard work. Valletta is our fantastic YPN champion. In addition to being incredibly supportive to our network and providing a leadership and strategic role, she is the Director General of Cabinet and Parliamentary Affairs. So with these introductions out of the way, let's jump right in. Chris, whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Thanks so much, Elena. Can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay. So thank you for the introduction. And thanks also for the opportunity to be here. I'm actually joining you today. Normally I would be joining you from Ottawa, which is the traditional land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, but I am fortunate today to be joining you from the Saugeen Ojibwe traditional land and unceded territory on Lake Huron. And I'm actually on the reserve today. So thanks very much for making time for me while I'm on my holiday. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to meet with everyone here and to give you a bit of my experience at public safety. I'm still fairly new, like Elena. I am what I would call a newcomer to public safety. I spent most of my career in economic issues, in global affairs, in trade policy, in trade promotion. And yet the opportunity to work on Indigenous issues was presented to me at public safety. And I had a little chuckle when I was looking at the Slido and what people knew about public safety, because admittedly, my experience with public safety was quite limited at Global Affairs. It was really on the national security side. And I have learned a lot more about this very broad portfolio that we have since coming to this department. What drew me here was really the opportunity, I think. First of all, it was an interest in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and the opportunity and I would say the imperative as a Canadian, as a public servant, to bring my skills to bear on advancing reconciliation. So I had been working on trade issues, including serving Aboriginal business at Foreign Affairs. And when the Deputy Minister at Public Safety contacted me, I was thrilled to be able to say yes to this position. It is a new position. I was asked to come and lead a task force, which is developing legislation that would recognize First Nations police services as essential services, but the job has continued to evolve, certainly as we recognize and respond to the call to reconcile. So that's a little bit about me. I wear two hats at the department. I am at once the ADM for the newly established Indigenous Affairs branch, but I'm also the departmental engagement champion. And I have a little bit more difficulty describing what that is because as you will learn, and in the Slido, as you saw, it is a very broad department. And so one of the key functions in that position is to try to integrate and help support integration across the department so that we are speaking as one public safety, we're acting as one public safety. And in that role, I also am the departmental champion for the Government of Canada Charitable Workplace Campaign, which I co-led last year with Valletta. So hi, Valletta. I don't see you on the screen, but I know you're there. Can I ask that you go to the next slide, please, Irma? Thanks so much. So the Slido was pretty accurate. Most people don't know much about public safety, and I would say that that actually is true of the federal government as well. Our mandate is really about keeping Canadians safe from a range of risks, such as natural disasters, crime, terrorism, there are border issues, there are economic threats, and we work across the portfolio as well as across government to help advance that mission. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. Alors, bonne fête. Joyeux anniversaire à la sécurité publique. This is our 20th anniversary. We were created in 2003 in the aftermath of a major terrorist attack in the United States. And it was really aimed at integrating a number of functions to drive forward in a more coherent way. It does integrate other issues. I kind of chuckled when someone wrote nothing. I know nothing about it. Where are the Band-Aids? That is part of what we do. We do promotion, we do education. We also help Canadians prepare for emergencies. And we have a lot of public facing campaigns in that regard. But we do a lot of behind the scenes work as well, stuff that most people don't ever learn about on the national security front. You're hearing a lot about it right now. It's very much front and center when we're talking about foreign interference, when we're talking about border issues. Obviously, there are other issues that you're hearing about as well. But nevertheless, it is a very broad portfolio. And what we're doing is we're working to keep Canadians safe. Our programs are also vast. It's a very, very large portfolio. We have both statutory programs, those are defined in law, and those are legal obligations that we have in disaster financial assistance. But we have a lot in law enforcement, crime prevention, community safety as well. There are border management issues. There's also think tank work that we do and cybersecurity work. So it's a very broad portfolio of programs that touches on a lot of issues and really serves a very broad range of Canadian stakeholders and Canadian partners. So it works with other levels of government, with the private sector, a number of other actors as well to do all of this to support a safer Canadian. And I would just underscore the fact that it is so vast, what we touch on, that makes us really interesting. Can I ask that you go to the next slide, please? So just in terms of our organizational structure, like all departments, we have several branches, and we also have some directorates that support all of the branches. We have corporate management branch, which is common to all departments. They serve to provide financial advice and HR, security overview, et cetera, IT, and every single department has that. But then we are organized thematically. So we have crime prevention, emergency management and program delivery, Indigenous Affairs, which is where I work, National and Cybersecurity Branch, which is where Elena works, Portfolio Affairs and Communications. And I would also note that we have another branch, which has not been listed here, which is the Firearms Buyback Program. And that is a huge program that is in the midst of being launched right now. And it has been set up under another branch, which is newly established as well. the great part, I would say, of having such a broad range of branches and files is that it makes for a very interesting and rich department to work in. You are not always working on the same issue. You have very multifaceted issues. There's an opportunity to try something new, to learn something new, to develop your expertise in different subject areas. And that's a really important thing, I think, especially for a young professional starting out in the federal government. We also have, like many departments, we have offices across Canada. So while our headquarters is in Ottawa, we have offices regionally in the Atlantic, in Quebec, in Ontario, the Prairies, and in BC. And BC and the Prairies and Quebec office serves the North. So there's a lot of activity that takes place at the grassroots level in our program delivery. And so those regional offices serve a lot of them. I also think it's important to note, especially in our discussion today, that our department is quite young. Nearly 50% of our employees are under the age of 40. And that means that it's a very dynamic environment as well. I think many people find public safety to be exciting and a fun place to work, not just because of the issues, but because of the people as well. Can I ask that you go to the next slide? Thank you. Quelque chose d'autre qui est vraiment unique avec nous, c'est le nombre d'agences et le nombre de ministères qui sont dans la portefeuille. So as you can see here, we have partner agencies as part of the portfolio, and we have several review bodies. This makes a very vast kind of subject matter, and we provide leadership coordination and strategic functions for our partners. So a lot of what we do requires us to integrate information from across those entities, but I wouldn't just stop there, because we're also working with a lot of other departments in the federal government. We work on something that struck me when I came to Public Safety Canada is the fact that although first and foremost, it was established to look at national security and hard security issues, it really integrates a number of other facets as well. There's economic issues that we treat, there's science and tech, there are social issues, there's community grassroots, and then very national and international files as well. And that is a very different, I would say that's a very different scope than many departments have. And it makes for a very interesting file list. It makes for a very interesting department as well, just in terms of the types of partners that we have. So we're working with other government departments federally, but also other levels of government in Canada, first responders, community groups, private sector, et cetera. There's a lot of groups, entities, partners that rely on public safety and collaborate and cooperate with us to advance our mission. And I think that that's a really important thing as well, because it is a very different flavor than working just with one type of stakeholder. Next slide, please. So what makes public safety great? You'll see that there's a lot of good reasons. So we've got our interesting files, but we also have the opportunity to serve Canadians in a real way that touches them on a daily basis. The fact that you have a small-ish management team that really cares about people and developing people, and the fact that you are constantly dealing with dynamic issues. I find one of the things that struck me, again, just as I was new in the department, was the number of current issues that this department faces on a daily basis. The files that we deal with, the information that we are analyzing and considering, it really is pertinent to every Canadian. And we may not always realize it, but it does lead to a safer Canada. It leads to protection of Canadians through prevention and response, through analysis and investment. And it's something that we do with pride on a daily basis. It's something that we do, we strive for excellence every day. And I think that we are masterful at integrating that new information on an ongoing basis. So files that I work on, obviously with respect to reconciliation and First Nations issues and Indigenous issues, but also things like climate change and the impact that this is having on emergency management, all of the developments in cyber in the cyberspace world, and the implications that that has not only on Canadian safety and security, but also on our economic security and how we consider those. Quelles sont les décisions qu'il doit faire? Quelles sont l'analyse? Quels sont les points salients, les points les plus pertinents qu'il faut considérer? Et c'est quoi l'avis qu'on doit donner au gouvernement à chaque jour? C'est très important ce qu'on fait à Public Safety. Je vais vous remettre avec Elena, mais je vais rester ici avec vous et je suis vraiment contente de vous parler dans les prochaines minutes. Alors, merci à Elena.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was very fantastic. So now we have Justine, who is a young professional in the Critical Infrastructure Directorate, as I mentioned before. And now, in actually preparing for this showcase, I myself found learning about Justine's position to be super interesting. So please go ahead, Justine, whenever you're ready.
All right, so I hope I'll impress. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to open up with a little bit about me. Mon nom est Justine Zabrowski. Mes pronoms sont elle, she, her. I will be switching back and forth in French, but hopefully everyone can get everything. I started at Public Safety in spring 2019 and have worked in the cyber exercises team for critical infrastructure ever since, though in different roles. J'ai commencé ma carrière gouvernementale en 2017 à Transport Canada, d'abord en tant qu'étudiante, as a student, mais après comme de manière permanente, tout en travaillant dans la gestion des urgences. So this was following my completion of an accelerated undergraduate degree in commerce after switching my major from mechanical engineering halfway through. I also recently completed my MBA at the University of Ottawa with specializations in project management, digital business, and sustainability. So as you can see, very broad area of learning. Je suis une personne de formation très variée, ce qui correspond bien avec mon rôle très dynamique actuel. So when I was asked to speak, I was told to describe my role day to day. The problem is my job, I don't have a day to day. As I stated, I work in cybersecurity exercises in the critical infrastructure team. Next slide. As you can see here, our critical infrastructure team is a mixed bag group of policy and programs running side by side. Next slide. So we work with organizations in Canadian critical infrastructure. The sectors are listed here on the slide, but they include things like power plants, water treatment plants, banks, municipalities, basically anything that if it shut down, Canada would be in trouble. Specifically, what I do is I design exercises. Les exercices s'agissent de fausses urgences auxquelles les organisations participent pour tester leurs réponses afin qu'une véritable urgence se produise, afin qu'elles soient bien préparées et prêtes avec un plan d'attaque. So exercises are practice emergencies that organizations participate in to test their responses before the real emergency hits, so that they're already prepared and have a battle-tested and effective plan to deal with the situation. It's a super interesting role, which combines a little bit of creative writing, some masterminding of doomsday plots, working with organizations one-on-one, and lots of logistics and planning. Chaque exercice est différent et vous deviez résoudre des problèmes de manière dynamique et réfléchir de nouvelles façons de tester les acteurs pour voir comment ils réagissent. So it's a very dynamic role, new things with every exercise. Every organization is different, and you get to try something new every time. All of this is so that once an incident actually occurs, they already know what works well, what doesn't, and what procedures they should be following. Next slide. So, parmi les exemples d'exercices que nous organisons, nous avons Remote Resilience, qui est une série d'exercices virtuels au cours que les organisations se connectent à un appel Zoom et nous leur donnons un scénario à discuter entre elles. So we have Remote Resilience, which is a virtual series where organizations will join a Zoom and we walk them through a scenario as they sit at a table and discuss. We also get to participate in Cyberstorm, which is the US's major biannual cyber exercise where we get to come together with allied countries from across the world to coordinate what would happen if there were to be a major global cyber threat. Very cool exercise to be a part of. Et nous avons aussi GridX qui teste la résilience du réseau électrique nord-américain à une, à une intrusion cybernétique. Next slide. But my current focus is exercise sci-fi, which will be the first Canadian national cyber exercise for critical infrastructure ever. Sci-fi is a major functional exercise we are planning, meaning it's in real time with people really sitting at their desks and reacting to all of these fake scenarios rather than a tabletop, which is the most common kind of exercise, which is people sitting at a table and discussing a hypothetical. We will be testing critical infrastructure companies as well as various levels of governments, provinces, municipalities, all of that across the country. For 1 week in October of 2024, it's coming up quick, we fake a major cyber threat and we just basically get to sit back and see how people react. It's a lot of fun. This is real time. We have fake social media, fake news, simulated emails, websites, everything. Partout au Canada, les gens s'exercent en même temps à ce que leur organisation ferait si ce scénario était réel. Ils peuvent vérifier s'ils sont prêts à faire face à une cybermenace ou s'ils doivent adapter leur plan ou leur procédure. So everyone in Canada, same time, everyone's exercising and seeing if this was real, are they ready? Are their plans good enough to face what they would do if a cyber threat hit? So right now I am deep in planning. So one day I could be meeting with an organization to plan out their specific actions, what their players will be receiving as information. A different day, I'm writing a news article that will release to simulate a real world reaction to this event. Or another day, I'm developing the storyline for a hacker group and writing a manifesto for them for their fake exercise website. It's really never a boring day here. We're never doing the same thing. But what drew me to my current role at public safety? Well, I don't have a computer science degree, as you heard earlier, but the great thing in government is sometimes interest and learned experience is enough, not just formal education. I know how to code, I have a background in robotics, and I had a genuine interest in cybersecurity, and my manager was willing to take a chance. La cybersécurité est un domaine très en vogue avec tellement de nouveautés. C'était très intéressant de travailler à la pointe du progrès, et j'aime aussi avoir l'impression que mon travail a un impact direct. So cybersecurity was of interest to me because it's always in the news, super interesting, super dynamic, and it's really interesting to be at the pinpoint of progress. I also like that my work directly makes sure that everyday Canadians are safer and more secure in the long run. I find it incredibly rewarding to have a direct impact with my job. Also, as I said, it's a very creative and dynamic role. I have different tasks every day, new challenges, new things to do. It's a role with a team in a department, public safety, that is very supportive of innovation and new ideas, which I personally really value. J'ai pu prendre en charge des projets intéressants en collaboration avec plusieurs départements différents, et même au niveau international. I was able to work with many different departments, Cyber Center very often, CSE, different things like that, and also our other critical infrastructure partner departments. So Transport Canada, we work with them for transport exercises. We work with NRCan for energy exercises, things like that. We're also able to work with lots of other countries. So I've worked with the United States, with Australia, with the UK, and lots of other things. Also, I've had access to a lot of learning opportunities. I was able to complete my master's degree during the pandemic while continuing to work at the department. And this really wouldn't have been able to be doable without a very supportive supervisor, thank you, and also a supportive department. Learning and growth is really prioritized here, which I love. I've also been able to use my training budget towards a university certification in exercise planning through the Justice Institute of BC, paid for in full by the department, which has been great. Public safety has also allowed me to take on additional opportunities on top of my day job. I recently was able to take over the role of co-lead of the Positive Space Initiative. It's new, but myself and Phelan, who you will meet later, my other co-lead, are actively trying to grow this initiative, which started as a training program, but we're expanding it to try and create a space where people can feel, people of the 2S LGBTQIA community can feel that sense of community, that sense of knowing other people that have the same lived experiences as yourself and have their voices heard. We run events, we offer learning opportunities, socials, and even consult with other groups to make sure that the community is well represented. We collaborate with other networks on topics of employment equity, harassment prevention, other things like that. La diversité et la représentation sont si importantes et la direction est extrêmement favorable à ce type d'initiative. C'est vraiment intéressant de pouvoir faire deux types de travail aussi différents dans la même journée. Direction is incredibly supportive of these kinds of diversity initiatives, and it's been really fun to be able to do such different types of work in the same day. It's also been a great career growth opportunity. I've been able to meet so many people that I never would have spoken to otherwise, and work on projects I am passionate about. One of those people that I wouldn't have maybe spoken to was my co-lead, Phelan Quinn, who will be up next to dive a little deeper into our work on the initiative. Thank you so much for your time. I hope I've been interesting.
You definitely have. Thank you so much again, Justine. Like I said, I have never heard of a role like her, so I was very interested myself to learn about it. So as Justine alluded to, next up, we have another co-lead of the Positive Space Initiative and a young professional working in an assistant deputy minister's office, Phelan. So Phelan's position is also unique as they get a great high-level understanding of the department as a whole. I'm looking forward to hearing more whenever you're ready, Phelan.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Phelan. I use they, them pronouns. C'est le pronom il en français. I'm not nearly as creative as Justine, so I don't have interesting PowerPoint slides for you all today. So my apologies, but you all just get to look at my face on the screen and listen to me talk at you. So I'm an administrative assistant, and I actually started in the public service at public safety in 2018 when I joined as a co-op student while I was doing my undergrad in anthropology at Carleton University, which I finished in 2020. I am really happy with my student experience here overall. Je suis l'enfant de deux anciens membres du service public, donc j'ai toujours su que je joindrais le service public d'une manière ou d'une autre. And I found that people here have really loved having students and have been really keen on keeping us around. So that's been great. It's why I'm still here. So while I'm not exactly like working in my field in terms of what I studied academically, I do feel like the social sciences are kind of underrated in the sense that we gain a lot of these sort of transferable soft skills that go a really long way in the public service. So like if you learn critical thinking, problem solving, research and analysis, time management, organizations, all of these skills that we all have to learn one way or another, especially as students and especially in the social sciences, then yes, your degree is relevant and applicable, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So unlike my fellow presenters, I have never worked in a department other than public safety. Je me blague un peu en disant que le département ne peut pas se débarrasser de moi, mais honnêtement, j'ai eu une expérience très positive et j'ai pas vraiment eu de raison de vouloir changer de département. So I still feel like, you know, I am learning and growing a lot here. And one of the great things about public safety in particular, I think, is how varied our work and files are for how small our department is. So for me, when I was looking to try something new after my last position here, which was in critical infrastructure in like a similar team as Justine, but you know, different, I had those opportunities to try something completely different within my own department in an environment that was already familiar to me. Et j'ai également trouvé qu'en raison d'être un peu petit comme département, de nombreuses personnes qui travaillent ici sont véritablement passionnées par leur travail, comme s'il ne s'agissait pas d'un simple emploi, mais d'un travail qu'ils veulent vraiment faire. So, you know, in our current climate where so many people are struggling and they're only in their jobs because they're trying to make ends meet, I'm sure we've all been there, you know, working jobs that we hated because we had bills to pay. Like, it actually really says a lot to me here to be surrounded by people who genuinely really love and care about what they do. So as mentioned, I currently work in the Assistant Deputy Minister's office in the Portfolio Affairs and Communications branch. So the Assistant Deputy Minister is like the head of our branch. So like I often see people sort of touring the floor with their like new to government employees, and they'll sort of introduce my boss and they'll say, oh, this is our boss's 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 boss. So like that's who I work for. And I kind of think about it as working more with your boss on a very direct personal level rather than like for your boss in that kind of abstract sense. And comme c'est le cas dans beaucoup d'endroits où il n'y a pas vraiment de lien avec la personne que l'on soutient ostensiblement dans nos travails. So unlike Justine, for example, we don't typically tend to handle specific files that we like pour our hearts into for months and months because so many different files pass through our Assistant Deputy Minister's office all the time, usually as part of the approval process. So instead, we get this sort of higher level top-down look at files from all over our branch. And our branch in particular is quite vast in terms of the variety of files and topics that we handle. Dans certains emplois, vous pouvez être très proche de moins de dossiers, mais dans notre équipe, nous sommes moins proches de plusieurs dossiers. So my team basically like sends and receives taskings, which is like government speak for like a demand that requires action. So it could mean anything from like preparing briefing material for a meeting or like writing a report on something. So, you know, we receive these things from all over the department, most notably from the Deputy Minister's office, as well as other groups within the department. So part of our job is to try to strike a balance between the folks that we're accountable to get them what they need in time, and with our own teams within the branch to make sure that they are like properly prepared and resourced and that they have enough time to do their jobs and to do it well. Il y a donc un peu de tension constante au sein de notre équipe et souvent il n'y a pas de bonne réponse et nous devons gérer cela au jour le jour. So I personally handle a lot of the like tasking out and tracking the workflow in our office. So like I am basically in charge of like keeping on top of the deadlines and figuring out who's working on which files, coordinating the approval process, and sort of getting these finalized approved products off to wherever they need to go. We also like handle our boss's schedule. So in our team, because of her personal preference, like every morning we spend some time with her and we go through her schedule item by item. Et nous lui fournissons aussi une liste des produits attendus chaque matin et nous discutons de tous les points importants. Par exemple, si quelque chose est en retard ou bloqué, s'il y a des problèmes ou des préoccupations, les choses comme ça. And sort of off the side of my desk, I also co-lead Public Safety's Positive Space Initiative with Justine, and that is not officially part of our paid jobs, but we do it kind of off the sides of our desk because we love it. As I said before, we're a small department, but you know, before we had this informal network, we really didn't have any way to connect with other 2S LGBTQI+ employees within the department. So when I started at Public Safety as a student in 2018, the Positive Space Initiative didn't exist yet, and I didn't know a single other trans or non-binary person in the entire department. And so while I was very well supported by my immediate team and my manager, like that's still kind of an isolating experience to not have a single other person like you that you can talk to. Et si vous avez déjà été en position d'être la seule personne comme toi sur votre lieu de travail, vous savez à quel point c'est important. So nowadays, we not only connect, you know, 2S LGBTQIA+ employees within the department to each other, but also to other departments. So we belong to the wider Public Service Pride network, and we distribute their information, events, initiatives, all of that, and make sure that everyone within our department, you know, is aware of what's going on elsewhere. Comme l'a dit Justine, nous proposons des formations aux employés sur l'inclusion des personnes du LGBTQIA+, sur leur lieu de travail, y compris la mise à disposition de ressources et de soutien à toute personne qui en fait la demande. So sometimes the kinds of support that we offer is just being an ear to an employee who needs to talk to someone within their own community about something that they're experiencing in their team. And maybe they don't know if they're being mistreated because of who they are, or if anyone else has dealt with these things before, and they just need to know that they're supported. They come to us. So we support everyone. That includes managers, supervisors, executives, anyone in charge of people can come to us because like maybe an employee of theirs has just come out and they don't know how to best support this person. Maybe this person is asking them for transition related resources, or, you know, this employee's home life has been destabilized in some way and it's affecting their work and their supervisor doesn't know what to do. You know, we help give these people resources and guidance if and when needed. Alors, l'espace positif est en grande partie lié à l'établissement de relations. So it's about knowing what is going on within the department and what your community members are experiencing, and being that trusted person that anyone can go to for support or to ask questions, or, you know, in the worst case, to say, this is what I've experienced. Is this normal? And what can I do? So we are very fortunate here at Public Safety specifically to currently have a deputy minister who is part of our community, because that senior management and executive buy-in and investment in our community is so, so important for these little groups like ours. Nous n'avons pas de budget, nous sommes non officiels, donc tout ce que nous avons dû le réaliser. Cela ne nous a pas été juste donné un jour. So previously, like the Positive Space Initiative at Public Safety, back before Justine and I were in charge, which is actually quite recent, actually got our main building here in Ottawa to put in gender neutral, inclusive, and physically accessible washrooms. And that was all because our senior leadership has been from the start so supportive of our community. And we were actually one of the first departments in the entire public service to do this. J'ai personnellement été contactée par d'autres départements fédéraux qui souhaitaient faire la même chose dans leur propre bâtiment. So people were reaching out to us for information about how they could implement the same kinds of inclusive washrooms in their own departments across the public service, and how they saw public safety as a trailblazer on that front. So we've done all kinds of things, trying to advocate for the community in our department. So we have actually this year organized for public safety to be able to march at the Ottawa Pride Parade later this month, which we are super excited about. We've been looking forward to this for months. So, as hard as it can be sometimes to be in these positions where you're providing that kind of unpaid emotional labor on topics that can be really difficult and really personal, and you can hear really hard stories as part of that. It's incredibly gratifying, especially like looking back at where I started as a student in 2018 to where I am now, to have carved out these spaces for other employees to be able to celebrate who they are and to just have fun in this supportive, positive environment, and to know that no matter what, they've always got someone in their corner. So right now we're actually working with senior leaders across the department to examine some of our internal processes related to IT, HR, security, to make them more inclusive for trans and non-binary employees specifically. So, looking back, I think that we're kind of a completely different department than we were in 2018 when I started. The culture change has been incredible in such a short amount of time. And part of why I keep doing this and being involved with the positive space is that, being able to give back in some way, some of the support that I have received over the years is really incredibly gratifying. So just to wrap up my portion, encore une fois, j'ai eu une très bonne expérience à la sécurité publique, à la fois en tant qu'étudiant et à ce jour, et je la recommanderais absolument à n'importe qui. So I personally do plan on staying here and continuing to grow and learn for as long as the department will have me. So thank you all so much for, attending and listening to me talk at you and not have anything even interesting for you to look at. So thank you. Merci.
Thank you so much, Phelan. That was incredible. It's always so amazing to hear about the personal connections in the department too, and all of the various initiatives that we have going. So now we are going to move into the live Q&A portion of the event. I've been keeping tabs on our Q&A box, and it looks like we have quite a few questions already, which is fantastic. So I think the ones that are the most popular kind of relate to being hired here at Public Safety Canada. So maybe Valletta or Chris, if you're on the line, you could speak to some of these, but some of the participants are wondering what the best way to attract the attention of hiring managers are at Public Safety Canada. And in a related note, what employment backgrounds or skills would assist someone with getting a job here?
Thanks. I will invite Valletta to join in as well. I think, first of all, what's important is the fact that you need to be interested in it and looking for that position. I was not aware that there were no current job postings right now. What I would note is that we do a lot of student bridging. I think because of the dynamic nature of the department, because of the sort of technical types of issues that we deal with, it's useful to get your, dip your toe in the water, so to speak, and see if it's a good fit. So sometimes, as Phelan was saying, sometimes it might not be in your area of study, but it feels like the right fit because it's allowing you to put those competencies to use. So what I would say is the first thing is to be interested in and looking for that. We have used a number of means. So student bridging and co-ops are very popular because they allow They allow for the employer and the employee to get to know one another, but we're also using GC Connects, which everyone here would have access to. Some people I know in my branch are looking at some of the Facebook groups and in the delivery section, and people sharing their CVs and interest there. So if there's not an active posting, those are other avenues that you can pursue as well. And there's always just reaching out, reaching out, finding someone who works in the space that you want to work in, and reaching out to them, because it is a good way to create your network, to grow your network, to cultivate it and maintain it as well. You never know what's going to come up. I don't know if Valletta's, oh, there she is. Hi. I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Oh, you can. Okay. I was just going to press all the buttons until something happened. Thank you very much. That was excellent. What I would say is just a little note about myself. I essentially started my career here. So this is the 20th anniversary of the department, and it's also the 20th anniversary of my career. It's very hard to believe that it went by so fast, but this is my second tour of duty in the department. I came back, and you'll find that there are many people here who have come 2 and 3 times. So there's a really big draw. The files that we work on you really see the difference that you make really quickly. The impact is not necessarily immediate, but pretty fast. In terms of how to get over to public safety, everything that Chris said. Also, what would be good is we have like every other department, we have our info page, and I think that you can kind of go on there and see how the department is kind of organized. You can even look in the DPRs and all of those things, and then you can go on to GEDS and sort of align your interests and try to find somebody that you can reach out to. We're a friendly group. And if somebody can't help you, they'll just sort of invite you to speak to one of their colleagues. Excuse me. Or, I know that it's not always easy for people to do that. It's kind of a personality thing, but an email is always the right way to start. And if there's a conversation that ensues, if you're interested as well, you can reach out to our HR folks and, let them know what your interests are, submit your CV, because to Chris's point, there may not be any active things going right now, but there are always spaces opening up in this department. There's always something new coming. I don't know. I had to step away for 4 minutes while Chris was speaking, but Chris is very new to the department as well, and her organization is growing. And it's not a new space, but she's taking it to she's trying to maximize and take it to its outer limits on such an important issue. So the department has always got something new happening. We have the mass casualty, we have the convoy, we have buyback. There's just always something new happening. And to Chris's point, you may not have the skills. You may think you don't have the skill set, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the skill set. We're always learning. I'm always learning new things. I'm in a different job now. I've been here for 6 or 7 months, and I still don't know what's going on, but everybody around me does. So that's really great. But we're always learning. So I say, look at what's interesting for you and then reach out. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Thanks.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, both Chris and Valletta. I'm sure all of our participants found that super helpful. So the other top questions that I see here, actually 2 of them I think I might be able to speak to, so I'll jump in. One of them is that the top one relates to having extensive experience in the private and not-for-profit sectors, and how to really be able to grow beyond current entry, mid-level roles in the government. And the other question that I'll kind of combine answers into is for myself, which is the participant is wondering that they're also a policy student looking to be bridged into an indeterminate policy analysis position after their studies. Do I find that public safety supports me well in career training, development, or even research? So in relation to the first part about not necessarily, having extensive experience in the non-governmental sector, I started my career in government as a student in a couple different departments, and then I moved to the non-governmental sector for about 3 years. I worked at an international organization, and then I decided to come back to public safety last year, as I mentioned at the beginning. And I think the biggest thing is just being able to really market the skills that you've gained and almost in some ways translate them into some of the government terminology that I found very helpful. So take a look at all of the different job postings and take a look at the terminology that they use and really tailor your resume and the way that you approach hiring managers to market those skills and demonstrate that they're transferable. In terms of the specific, my trajectory as to why I kind of was able to go from a student to then I went to an EC2 and now I'm acting in an EC4. I think some of that has to do with actually the skills that I gained on the non-governmental side. And additionally, that's the really great thing that I want to emphasize about public safety is that there's so many opportunities to learn, and they're very incredibly supportive of career development and providing those acting opportunities when they come up and giving you a shot to learn and to professionally grow and all of those things. So in terms of that question, I'd say definitely. And I've even gotten to go on some training related to my files outside of the government, and that's been completely supported and facilitated by my team. So definitely they want you to grow. They want you to also stay within the department and really show your best. So that is kind of my attempt to answer those two questions. Does anyone have anything else to add on those particular points? All right. Okay, great. Hopefully
Elena, can I add to it? Elena, can I add to that?
Definitely.
So I think one of the things that we do find, I'll just speak as, kind of elder stateswoman here. Like Valletta, I have more than 20 years in the public service, and I have more than 30 years in the public service. So I would note that it's sometimes difficult to translate those competencies, but it can be done. And I think what is really important is to think about the projects that you have worked on in non-governmental sector and the things that you often do when you're in a small organization, a smaller, especially in the not-for-profit sector, you often end up doing a much broader range of things. And you can bring that with you. And I agree fully with Elena that it's about how you use the language of the public service to help us understand, what your experience is and how it's applicable, what ought to interest us. And I am sorry to say, but that is kind of endemic in government processes. We have a commitment to competency-based processes, but that allows you to really draw in that information. And I know it can seem feels like you're putting a square peg in a round hole, but it just takes a little bit of effort to think about how you push that. And I would also note, don't just do it in your processes to apply. Think about how you might do it in conversations with your manager as well about things that you're looking to expand on the job training, etc. So I'll leave it there. Thanks, Elena.
No, that was great. Thank you very much, Chris. So I believe next up, let's see. So in terms of having access to some of the more opportunities that are available at public safety, I would say definitely stay on GC Jobs. And also, I think Valletta mentioned too, or Chris too, there's some Facebook groups where there can be some postings, especially if you're at level in certain classifications. You might see on Facebook that there's a manager looking for those specific profiles. And in terms of, I see one question here, what kind of profiles are we looking for EC positions? I'm interpreting this as it might be language profiles. And if that's the case, then we do have some English essential positions at the EC2 level. That's the one that I'm substantively in. And then we also have quite a few BBB positions as you move up in the EC scale. So I think we have some other questions here for Justine. So Justine, would you mind being able to speak to maybe how you went about completing a master's while working, if you have any recommendations for that? And then we have another question for you immediately after that.
Okay. First thing I will say, give up on having free time. It is a difficult thing to do. You do spend basically all of your time either working or doing your degree. For me, I had the advantage that I did it during the pandemic, so none of my friends were doing anything. But it does require a significant time commitment. I do think that the important thing are to have a program that allows for that kind of flexibility. I worked through the University of Ottawa, which has a professional program that allows you to take courses evenings and weekends. There are also programs that allow you to take classes in blocks on just a Friday, so you could take only one day off a week. Or I know friends who have done virtual programs that are self-paced. Through the government, I will also say having a conversation with a supervisor or a manager so that they are supportive. My supervisor was very willing to allow me to make up time. If I had an exam one day, needed to take a couple hours off for that, I was able to work outside of my work hours a different day to be able to accommodate that. So having a conversation with your supervisor or your manager, whoever is in charge of your time, about this commitment that you're going into. This is your education. It is a big piece. They should be aware of it. And having that conversation about them supporting you. I find that the government is very pro-education. They want you to get to learn. They want you, this is beneficial for them to have employees that are educated and learning new things. So I haven't ran into any major barriers. Maybe if you have like an on-call or call center position, it might be slightly more difficult, but in general, I've found that my experience at public safety, at least, which will color my experience of government, is people are very supportive in giving you that time as long as you are upfront and able to manage your responsibilities both. I have another friend who dropped down to 4 days a week to do her master's while she was doing it. That's another option, dropping down to part-time. But in general, it is worth it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I see quite a few questions on also relating to public health, and additionally some questions regarding science backgrounds. I don't think anyone on the line here can really speak to those questions. However, we do have some resources that you can send, some email contacts that you can send those questions to, and we can definitely look into them. I believe our recruitment email, there's one in the chat, and I'm sure we can also share our Young Professionals Network. And if you share your information, we can find out that answer for you. I think maybe we're running out of time, so how about we go? I saw one question here that I thought was very interesting, and it was relating to kind of, where is it here? Of the work delivered by Public Safety Canada, is there something that stands out to you that you feel proud of? So if any of our panelists can speak to that, that would be great. And that way we'll end off on a positive note.
Since I'm already on screen, I can give my perspective. I think one of the really cool things about public safety in specific is you're having a direct impact on Canadians' lives. So by doing your work day to day, you are making sure that people are able to live safely, more securely, are more comfortable in their homes, and don't have to worry about threats to themselves. So being able to work in a role that has a direct impact, that you're able to look back and say, hey, I helped with that, it's been really rewarding.
Perfect, thank you. And I think, Chris, did you have your hand up?
I was looking to clap, and I'm sorry, I am very bad at Zoom, but I would say, you know, from my perspective, I am really proud of First Nations policing. And we have 36 self-administered services in Canada, and by and large, these are the type of police officers that I think we would all love to be served by in our communities. They are professional, and I just love working with them. I think it's a really important initiative that the government has embarked on to bring forward a law. I adore the chiefs of police that I've been working with, and I am so grateful to them for the work that they do in their communities, for the example that they set, for the fact that they are responding to their communities with respect, with humanity, and I think setting, just serving as an exemplar for all police. So that's what I would say from my ambit.
Perfect. Thank you. And I recognize we're out of time here. So thank you very much to all of our speakers and especially the participants for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed learning a bit about public safety. Just quickly, we're always looking to bring great people on board, so please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you have any additional questions or you'd like more info. And thank you again very much to the Federal Youth Network for organizing this fantastic initiative and giving us an opportunity to speak. Bonne journée. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Merci à toi, Elena, la modératrice, et puis merci à tout le monde. Hein? Merci à Phelan, Justin, Irma, et puis Chris. Et puis, as mentioned in the chat, resources are available on our wiki page, and the recording of this session will be available on our YouTube channel. Merci tout le monde, et puis au plaisir de vous retrouver. Au revoir.